Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us, or welcome if you're joining us. We are being joined today by Tom Winooski, George Taranto, and Mike Collins, all from City Council, talking about some things that we think are important for you to know. So let's talk for just a moment about the presidency of City Council. It looked it looked like a little frustration happening in that process. Was I misreading that? Come on, guys, don't all talk at once here.
I wanted George in there. Well, all of us did. And unfortunately,
I felt, frankly, and this is nothing that detracts away from our current council president, Paula Hicks Hudson. She's a very fine person. But I felt that George had served for 11 plus years. He's term limited out. His contribution to this council and to the city is remarkable. And I would have liked to have seen, as an honor to the service that he has provided to the city, politics out of the equation, he become the president of City Council for the rest of his term, and we move on. And I think council would have been well served under those situations. And I said that all the way through. I was the one that nominated him. After Sandy Spang was done, and I felt that that was the way it should go. I promised her, but in my heart of hearts, I believed that George, or not Sandy Spang, I'm sorry, I nominated George, and I felt all the way through that was on the council appointment with Ms. Spang.
Well, you have done a marvelous job, and you will be through in December.
Yes, December 31.
Yay, George, 12 years. That's a
Still have
great
some hair
contribution. You do, a little less than you did when I first met you, but yeah,
more
you still
gray.
have a lot more gray. So is this one of those cases where politics just purely got in the way, didn't make any sense, or is there a reason?
I suspect I'm probably the easier one to answer that question.
Well, let's
since my party didn't get involved.
Well, let's let Tom.
Well, and I was the lone vote when George so statesmanly said, after it was an 8-4 vote, that we would redo the vote so that Paula would have unanimous. And with all due respect to a wonderful person that Councilwoman Hicks Hudson is, I did not. I felt that was being driven by a party and or a special interest group, and not the 12 of us getting together to say, you know what, George is the guy, based on what Councilman Collins has said, and he has worked fantastically on both sides of the aisle. They couldn't have done that, so that's what upset me.
That's what upset you. So we know the party you're talking about is the Democratic Party. Who's the special interest group that was driving it?
In the last 3 months, we had to pick 2 replacements on council. And I felt that the bargaining units were pushing the party to push for their candidates, and I didn't want to go for that.
You know, and I want to, and again, you know, you and I are great friends, and I've always respected what you've done on City Council, so thank you so very much. I'd like to say that publicly. Thank you so very much for what you've done. Do you think that the bargaining units are having too much influence in council?
You know, look, there's a lot of interest groups in the city of Toledo. We have to recognize that. And labor is a big part of the city of Toledo. It's history and currently. So I think that we have to take into account what labor wants, just as the business community wants.
Yeah, but some have more weight than others, George. Some have more weight than others, Councilman. So my question is, do the bargaining units have more weight in your processes than other interest groups?
Well, coming from the bargaining unit, I don't really think they do, to be honest with you.
But you're coming from the bargaining unit.
Well, but I have voted against contracts. Contrary to the interests, I've said to them no. As a matter of fact, under the Finkbeiner administration, when there was an issue as to the city's always hiding money, I said to the bargaining units at that time, I have looked at the finances of the city and I have not found any hidden money, and if there is hidden money, I will resign my position immediately, because I have told you.
But there is little room for discussion or disagreement that the bargaining units drove the Sean Enright appointment over the Jack Ford appointment.
That was a party situation, if you can translate to the unions run the Democrat Party, that's one thing. But they didn't have anything to do with the president of council. The unions, I didn't see any influence. As a matter of fact, George had union support. So I didn't see the unions
So
driving this
generally
decision.
speaking, the unions are not overly influential in what happens on
Not any
on
more than
council.
any other group.
Really, Tom?
I look at the finance records. I had talked with a council member, and I was amazed at how much money had been contributed to him, and I thought, when you sell your soul down that road, no wonder they're going to be wanting things back. And that's where I
Who was
still.
the money contributed to? Did you say and I missed it?
I did not say.
You didn't say? Will you say?
Councilman Craig and I were running for re-election in
right.
11, and
Okay.
the unions targeted us. And I represent all the people. When somebody calls me to have a pothole replaced or a tree trimmed, or their car's been broken into, I don't ask them what party they belong to. I
Right.
respond to them. And I wish more members on council would look at, we represent, I appreciate they have a good organizational structure, but we represent the common person who belongs to nothing but wants
Yay.
to get home.
Absolutely. Just
so-
wants to get help.
But along-
Thank
That's
you
right.
for saying that.
Along
Yeah.
those same lines, we also have to recognize that under the charter, for many, many decades now, council members and the mayor are nonpartisan. We do not run with party labels. So again, being a candidate for the presidency, my message was, we are not Democrats or Republicans at city council. We are elected without a party label. And the reason for that is, under the charter, is that the citizens demand objective decisions. And we are not going to be party animals. And
Right.
I just feel that, again, electing either a Democrat or a Republican or an independent shouldn't make any difference. It's what you want to do and your track record.
Right. It shouldn't, but unfortunately it does. And I think Tom is sort of moving around in his chair a little bit over there because it does.
Yeah.
It does.
And my mom, my brother, great UAW workers, and they're hard workers. They're hard workers. It's just, and I would say this on any special interest group, you know, we represent, there's so many more people out there. When you look at, I've often used this mantra very quickly, when you get 35% of the registered voters out to vote and the media says, wow, this is fantastic, I'm wondering where the other 70% is. They're upset with the system.
That's
they don't
right.
want to be part of this.
Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely. And that's something I think that elected officials need to acknowledge and make a point of trying to change. The system doesn't work if people don't use it.
Absolutely. It's
Special interest groups, not the bargaining units in particular, but any special interest group
It's a good
prevails
voter
if
that
they're
doesn't
only-
vote that creates the poor performance
Absolutely.
of an elected official.
Absolutely.
18% of the voters, registered voters in the city of Toledo, participated in 2009 at a mayoral election.
Right.
18%.
Isn't it miserable? Okay, look at me. If you are not voting, don't complain. You don't change things if you don't vote. I say it here all the time. It's serious business here. Look, we need to move on. We've got just a few minutes left. One of the things that I was really surprised at is where Toledo was ranked in the state on relative to economic development. We were ranked dead last out of 8 cities surveyed. The one where most things are happening, obviously, guess what? Columbus. We're not surprised by that. What's going on with us?
I think, you know, you have to look at how they do the surveys, the questions they ask, the criteria they have. And I've disagreed with some of those surveys. Forbes magazine,
Where
as
would
an
you put us?
example.
On 8?
I would put us probably at 3.
Really?
And I'll tell you why. I mean, we have a casino that is doing very well. Our business income tax is up tremendously, well over 20% in the last year. So that tells me companies are doing well, including small businesses. We have a thriving GM and Chrysler plant right in the city of Toledo, and that has a very positive spin-off effect. So, you know, when they say, well, you're one of the most miserable cities in America, I said, come on. You know, the fact of the matter is, so often the big cities do have a real presence, and they can dominate those surveys for many years to come. But when you talk to people in what we have to offer in this community, reasonable cost of living, a very diversified economy, great educational institutions,
So you think the survey is just wrong?
I think it's flawed.
Councilman?
I totally agree. I just think that you can say anything you want if you parse out the numbers, and those are the numbers that are parsed out. I do think we need to do a stronger job on economic development. The administration does not have the same structure as the previous administrations have had. in terms of economic development. We don't have that office that we had in the presence. But there's also the concept of how many silos do you need before you figure out you have too
You
many.
got too many, right? Quickly, Tom.
You know, I will always be a great cheerleader for Toledo. People are doing these surveys at a phone bank in some remote city. Let them come here and see the great people and the great things we have to offer.
Great, great answer. Okay, we've got just a couple of minutes left. Last week, I asked you how you would grade yourself. You guys gave yourselves a B+, I think, as I recall. I didn't get there yet. And you and I were closer to being on the same page. Gave yourselves gave council C-. What do you think the mayor? A to F. What do you think the mayor is? How do you think he's doing?
I would say D+.
D+. George?
C+.
C+.
B+.
B+. Oh, my
Absolutely.
stars. Okay, let's start over here, quickly.
Well, I just think that this idea of transparency is completely not part of the program that Mayor Bell has presented. When you answer truthfully,
45 seconds.
don't be devious with your answers. And answer the question. And he hasn't answered too many
He
questions.
hasn't answered too many questions. In a word?
I think he is pretty honest. He's been honest with me, and I think he has the right intentions up here, and I don't think he's a scheming politician. That's what I like about him.
Okay, George, 30 seconds.
More emphasis on neighborhoods.
All right, great, great, great. You guys, it's so great to have you here. Will you stay with me for just a bit longer?
Sure.
Absolute, great. Glad to hear that. We will be right back in just a moment. Don't go away.